Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. We're back with another episode of Mentorlogues. Today with us, we have Gabriella Benko, a star mentor and cohort lead from Paris, and she will be hosting a session on using brain-based personal development. Over to you, Gabriella.
Thank you, Asha, for the introduction. It's a real pleasure to be with you today in this Mentorlog. A big thanks to Thrive with Mentoring and the team for organizing and facilitating this learning event for those who want to develop and grow. Welcome, and it's really appreciated if you joined in live, and welcome to those who watch the replay. Don't hesitate to reach out anytime if you have any questions or comments, even after the event. So I have been involved in Thrive since the first cohort in Paris in 2021 as a mentor and cohort leader. I believe in the power of the change maker mindset and lifting each other up, and that's why I joined Thrive with Mentoring. I do believe that we can make the world a better place and that humans can and need to integrate work in their lives organically. I think that at the workplace, leaders need to focus on igniting the human magic, as Hubert Joly said it in his book, The Heart of Business. So just a quick look back on my career. I had to reinvent myself many times because of macroeconomic context or my choices, and I also changed countries and I had to adapt. I started my career in finance in the corporate world, and soon I set up my businesses. And in finance and strategy consulting, I have been working with SMEs, entrepreneurs internationally to help them operate sustainably and change successfully. I do believe in the power of cooperation and collaboration. And I have 3 running projects with amazing coach colleagues. The Leader Think Tank, which is a female leadership lab, which is a training and coaching program for women leaders to excel and maximize their leadership impact. The Peak Performance Series, which is a B2B globally for teams to enhance their performance, engagement, and well-being by leveraging neuroscience. And finally, the Neurodevelopment Institute, which is a not-for-profit learning community, and we offer events to the public, so there is greater awareness and understanding of how your brain, body, emotions work together using applied neuroscience. So just let's have a quick look at what I'm going to cover today. We'll talk about brain-based personal development. As Asha said, I am a brain-based coach. I got my certificate from the Neuro Leadership Institute. I'm passionate about neuroscience because of personal experience, and also I can see with my coaches how understanding more about the brain take them out of the feeling of being stuck, and how they open up paths for themselves, and they make more informed choices, they move forward in their lives, and like that they have better well-being, they increase their satisfaction with their relationships, be it personal or professional. So by the end of this talk, we will have covered We Don't Know What We Don't Know, which is basically about awareness and creating awareness in our days. Also, we can exchange fear for hope, because our brain continuously scans for threat as an evolutionary carryover. This is the rustle in the bush. And hope comes in the form of neuroplasticity, because we can change and the brain is made for change. So let's start with a personal story about we don't know what we don't know. And this is the tale about the impostor and the negative voices. And we'll try to look at this through the lens of neuroscience to understand more. So after graduation, I was hired as a talent at large corporations. And then after that, I set up my own companies. Heads of SMEs listened to me and followed my advice. I was a member of several board of directors representing foreign shareholders who trusted me, people my parents' age. And I was in my late 20s at the time. And I was the only woman in the boardroom. I was seen really successful and happy on the outside. But inside, I was full of questions and doubts about my capabilities. I was anxious and worried that I was not enough, and worked really, really hard and pushed hard. But I still had these negative voices in my head and this gripping feeling in my stomach. And they were telling me, how can I be sitting at the table? Who am I to give advice to people much older than me? I'm more stupid than they think, and so on. So these negative voices in my head were loud, frequent, and disturbing. And this is what we now call imposter syndrome. At the time, I didn't know that. Without any knowledge of neuroscience at the time, the moment arrived when I was alone at home and saw myself wrestling with myself, which was an insight as well as a very sad moment, because I understood I created my suffering, but also it was a moment of opportunity. And I realized that the negative and debilitating voices in my head were separate from me. After this, I started to observe them. And these negative inner voices are called nowadays different names: the inner critique, the judge, the saboteur. So when I observed them, first I asked them, what is the situation when they arrive? What am I doing? So I noticed that generally I was facing challenging and difficult situations that I didn't master. So there was a lot of uncertainty, and I knew I could make a mistake, which was difficult, especially at that time I was a perfectionist. For example, once I had to speak in front of 300 people for the first time in my life about a topic that I thought I didn't master, a very difficult experience. I also observed that what these voices are saying to me. And I realized that they are always negative and never ever a little glimpse of light, cheering. They always repeat the same thing, and it's very boring. So after that, I started to talk to them and started to say, oh, so you're back again at the worst time when I would need encouragement. You are here to pull me down. So I told them, I have already heard this before. Is there something new to tell me? No, then just leave me alone and go away. And I heard from my coach colleagues that they advise their coaches to give funny names to their negative, debilitating voices, like the nag or Beelzebub or judge. So I didn't really call them at that time anything, but what I can tell you that starting this observation, this is how my demons became pixies. They are just pixies now. Of course, this change didn't happen from day one to day two. I practiced. And slowly but surely, the voices arrived less frequently, they spoke less loudly, and they didn't take away so much mental and emotional energy from me. Are they still with me? Yes, they are. They didn't disappear, and there is a neuroscientific reason for that. Yes, I woke up in the middle of the night because I'm talking today, but they are almost invisible and more silent. So I'm calm, I can calm myself. So uncertain stretching situation can still activate unpleasant feelings, but I know they dissipate. They come and go like a leaf that falls from the tree to the river, and they just float away. And I can observe without judgment, with self-empathy and curiosity. So what we need to know, we are our worst judges. So praise yourself more and praise other more, because they judge themselves harshly as well. And I saw it with my coaches as well. So how this mindset put them on a continuous growth and got more resilient mindset. If I had understood the brain at the time, it would have normalized what seemed at the time insurmountable and lonely experience. And the change, I would have known that there is change and there is hope. Now, let me bring in some neuroscience for you. Our brain is not for thinking, it is for survival. Our brain is a prediction machine that is locked in a black box, the skull, and needs to process vast amount of data that flow in through our senses and nervous system. So what happens in order to react quickly in situations, it continuously checks our already existing maps and experience in our brain. And this is the moment when it says, oh, what worked in the past will work now. And it tries to predict what would be the most appropriate response in this situation that it's facing now. This approach was very useful in the past when we had to escape from predators. Because those stayed alive whose brain could predict well. We definitely wanted to be ready and fast when the lion wanted to eat us. But we didn't want to waste precious life energy trying to flee the butterfly. So this is an evolutionary carryover, and this is the rustle in the bush that we take into the office, into our homes at the moment. So we are not chased nowadays by lions, but we can feel the same threat in our social interactions. Now, another central idea is that our experiences and learning create connections in our brains and maps. So in our childhood, adulthood, new connections are continually created. And as the brain is responsible for survival, it is constantly trying to automate processes to save energy, so that these actions can be carried out more effectively and faster. So the automation means it transfers whatever it can, it comes from the conscious to the non-conscious. And because consciousness is slow, subject to error, and energy expensive, so it's not good for survival. On the other hand, we are really social. Based on one hypothesis, when we are children, we survive through adults. Until we are around 12. We survived for more than a decade by knowing who to trust, not to trust, and basically being a parent's favorite. So by the time we become adults and enter the workspace, we have non-conscious thought patterns, emotional patterns, and behavioral patterns that can serve us or debilitate us in the future. So for example, the negative inner voices that I heard as an adult are voices from the past, from family, friends, playground, school. At the time, they might have been very helpful or not. They might have been said with positive intent to help us or protect us. But now as an adult in another situation, these sentences are not very useful. So for example, my grandparents lived in a political context where becoming almost invisible saved their lives, when silencing themselves saved their lives. And because they cared for me, they tried to teach me not to be visible and speak up. These very well-meant words that they shared with me, but can be an unuseful blockage in my adulthood as I live in another context and I need to become visible and speak in front of a lot of people. If you have a brain, you have negative voice. I repeat, if you have a brain, you have negative voices. And you can turn down the volume, you can turn down the frequency of their visits. So this is possible. This is possible by self-awareness and neuroplasticity. And I'll get back to that later. So in order to create self-awareness of your non-conscious patterns, you need to turn this process around by refocusing your attention. And when you have unpleasant feelings in your body, just stay in that discomfort zone and observe your bodily physiological sensations. It is temporary, according to neuroscience. With mindfulness, you can refocus your attention. For example, taking a deep breath. This is what I did exactly before this talk. And just observe what's happening with you to enable yourself to create a new future. As Dr. Jim Lohr, a performance psychologist, said, the inner voice is the power broker in your life. How well you revisit the tone and the content of your private voice is what determines the quality of your life. It is the master storyteller, and the stories we tell ourselves are our reality. Now, let's continue with another extremely important central idea. The overarching organizing principle of the brain is to classify the world around you into things that either hurt you or help you to stay alive. It's the same evolutionary carryover that I mentioned before. When the brain detects something that could help you survive, you experience primary reward and unconsciously take action to move toward that reward. This primary reward includes food and love. When the brain detects a threat that could endanger life, you non-consciously take action to stay away from that threat. Think about the ferocious dog. Bad is stronger than good. First, you have to stay alive in order to eat the apple. The arousal from a danger comes on faster, lasts longer, and is harder to budge. So just think about how fast you could run away from a ferocious dog or run after your love, the love of your life. It's very different speed. The threat response is more intense and common. And also, we nowadays live in just a social setting, and we experience that that threat in social settings. It's exactly the same threat response as our response to a ferocious dog. The basic, brain threats and social threats and rewards, the brain treats with the same or even greater intensity as the physical threats and rewards. This is the pain in the brain. So we bring this threat response to our lives, the office, at home, in our interactions. Uncertainty is dangerous for survival. Our brain doesn't like that. When we grow, and the uncertainty is with us when we learn something, when we do new things. So it generates physiologically unpleasant feelings. And this can suggest us not to repeat the actions. It tells us get away from any possible, from this situation. So when we stretch ourselves, just hold this unpleasant feeling and just move forward. Now we're getting to the exciting bit, and this is the neuroplasticity. For much of the history of psychology, researchers were under the the impression that the brain did not change after childhood. So the adult brain and personality was established and couldn't change. Now it is understood that the brain can change throughout the whole lifetime in response to experience and learning, and experience either positive or negative. So it's adaptable like plastic. So if you think about the brain as pathways, there are billions of pathways in your brain, and they light up every time you think, feel, or do something. And some of these are well-traveled, and these are the habits, our established way of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice something, do something, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this path. And it becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. So we think about something differently, learn something new, or we choose a different emotion, then we start carving out a new path. And if we keep traveling that path, our brain begins to use this new pathway. And this new way of thinking, emotion, and doing becomes our second nature. And the old pathways gets used less and less and weakens. So this is really fantastic. And this is the hope that it is really easy to create new connections. Just as a final thought, self-awareness, it's just to sum up what we have been talking about. Self-awareness is the non-conscious going into the conscious. And for that, we need to slow down. We need mindfulness. We need to praise more. We need to praise more ourselves and others. We have to beat the threat response and the judge. The patterns from the past are the base of our predictions now. be emotions, thoughts, or behaviors, and build new patterns for your future now. Uncertainty is unpleasant, but it's temporary. And change fear for hope through neuroplasticity. So here are some resources that you can take a screenshot and that you can explore some topics. I mentioned some of these, some of them I didn't mention. And thank you very much for being here with me and hanging in, because I know I ran over 2 minutes. And over to you, Asha.
Thank you so much, Gabriella. So that was an amazing session. I think it was really insightful and full of hacks that I wasn't aware of, at least, and I'm sure everyone would have found it useful. We don't have any questions as of now, but I did leave a prompt for everyone to leave their questions in the comment section. So everyone can tag Gabriella on LinkedIn if they want Gabriella to answer those questions directly, and I'll also be sending the link to you so that you can have a look at the whole session.
Thank you
So
very
that's
much.
it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Asha, for the opportunity and for your help and the whole Thrive team. And I'm looking forward to the coming up Mentorlogues. They sound very exciting.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank
See you
you.
again on 27th February.
Thank you. Bye-bye.